Well, I'd like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Myself, the AD Solutions team and Manage Engine really appreciate you taking your time to spend some time with us. And I know it's difficult to step away from work. Sometimes it's kind of nice to learn some new information, and we're hoping that today is that day that we fill in some information for you. My name is Derek Melber, and I will be your presenter today. And I feel we have a pretty important and engaging topic for you today, which is all about Active Directory changes and having the ability to monitor and audit and alert on those changes when those changes occur. I think all of us that are on this webinar struggle with really trying to get a hold of the changes that occur in Active Directory because we have a multitude of administrators, we might have delegation set up, and it's difficult to know what's going on in Active Directory unless you have a monitoring system. So that's really what we're going to focus on today in our seminar or our webinar. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just want to give you a little bit more information about me so you know who you're listening to for the next hour. As I said, my name is Derek Melber. I am an Active Directory MVP currently, and I've kind of flip-flopped between Active Directory and group policy for the last, I guess, 13 or 14 years. My current title is Technical Evangelist for the AD Solutions team here at Manage Engine, and I want to point you to some different resources that we have available for you. First and foremost is my email address. I love to receive questions, whether it be about today's event or whether it be about anything else around Active Directory, security, group policy. I'd love to field those questions for you. Also, I wanted to point you to a couple of different things on our website. So I'm going to jump out here to our website and point you to some different things that are somewhat hidden. So first and foremost, I want to point you to, if you click on the Active Directory link, over in the right-hand corner of this drop-down box, you see security hardening. This is a very, very, very important site that we've been working on for almost a year now. And really what this site is about is helping administrators, helping organizations get a much better idea of what's going on with security for Active Directory as well as their Windows servers. So we have some information here, but really what I want to point you to is these drop downs at the bottom of the page, which give you information in blogs and videos to help you with that. So that's a resource that we have for you. It's absolutely free. Please come out, consume, and we actually do have some seminars and webinars that will be going on possibly in your area within 2016. So keep an eye out for those, and we'll be discussing security hardening in some of those other events. Also wanted to point you to our community. This is a place where myself and others on the AD Solutions team help you with Active Directory highlights, things that are going on with Active Directory. This is not all about product. This is about us helping you be more efficient and get things done faster and more things done with regard to Active Directory. So those are just some resources that I want to point out to you with regard to what we offer, whether it be customers or would-be customers. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about some things that we have going on around the world. We have been doing quite a few webinars over the last couple of months throughout the world, and now we're going to be live in some different places. So as you see, we will be at RSA, so if you are going to be attending RSA, please stop by our booth, give us a handshake, introduce yourself. I'd love to meet as many people as possible that attend our online and other events. And then as you see, we'll be touring the world. We'll be in Dubai, Kuala Lumpur, a couple of stops in Spain, a city in Portugal, and then 3 different cities in Germany in late April, and that gets only to May 1st, and it just goes on from there. And I know that we're trying to get out to the East Coast in early June, so keep your eyes peeled for that as well. So that just gives you a little bit of information about what we provide outside of this webinar. So let's just jump right into what we're going to talk about today. As I mentioned, we are going to be focusing on change monitoring of Active Directory. And before we can actually talk about the details, you guys need to have an understanding of what my definition is of change monitoring. So we're going to go over that first. And then once we get the definition, then we have to do the setup. So we're actually going to start from scratch, and I'm going to show you how to set up auditing and advanced auditing in Windows so that you can track every single change that occurs within Active Directory. And this is really the main point, is making sure that you have the configuration set properly so you don't miss anything. And what I have found over the years, working with administrators of Active Directory, is the documentation is not that great from Microsoft. So, you know, companies like us, people like me as an MVP, my job is to help you understand the settings and why those settings are important and how to set those up. So we're going to do that today first and foremost. Well, once we have auditing set up and we're actually tracking the changes that occur in Active Directory, everything shows up in the security log. So I'm going to jump into the security log and we're going to walk through the security log, and we're going to try to use Microsoft solutions to get the information that we want out of the security log. Obviously, if we are monitoring changes in Active Directory, we're going to need a couple of things. One, we're going to need a report for ourselves as the admin. Two, we're going to need reports for auditors. And three, we want to leverage the information that's being monitored so that we have a better idea of what's going on as it occurs. So I'm going to call this alerting. And we're going to try to do all of this through the security log, through the Microsoft solutions that are in place. And then finally, we're going to kind of try to take some common events, and we are going to try to solve or try to find these common events that occur within Active Directory by going through the security log. And then finally, we're gonna hit some road bumps. We're gonna hit some walls. I'm not gonna lie to you, and all of those road bumps and walls will be tore down, and it'll be a smooth path when we start using a solution that's actually designed to do what we're trying to do with change monitoring. So let's look at what my definition of change monitoring is. As an old Active Directory admin myself, and obviously an MVP in Active Directory, I know, as well as you know, that there are many different objects in Active Directory that can change. Obviously, we have the basics. We have users and groups, and user properties and attributes and group membership, and that's pretty obvious. But we have more complex configurations too. I mean, let's just take group policy alone. Now that Microsoft has added in group policy preferences, we're dealing with a multitude of client-side extensions. And these client-side extensions, each of them have hundreds, if not thousands, of settings. In a single GPO, we have over 5,000 potential settings that we can make. We also have DNS, which of course is an integral part of Active Directory. We have all these moving parts around Active Directory, and it's my opinion that we need to have a solution that tracks any change to any Active Directory modification. And why is that important? Well, I think it's obvious why it's important. If we are dealing, whether it be with uptime, security, a single change in Active Directory could mean someone doesn't have access to an application anymore. A single change in Active Directory could mean that too many people have access to data, and now we have an issue because we have no security. We've really relinquished our security. So really when it comes to the idea of tracking changes, we need to make sure we track everything, okay? So not only do we want to track everything, we want to track the details of the changes that occurred. All of us on this webinar know we need to know who made that change, because many of us, every week, we go into Active Directory and something has changed. We send a broadcast email out to the entire team asking who made the change, and it's crickets. No one answers. We need to have some solution that tells us who is making that change. Plus, some of the changes are complex. Let's take group policy again. Some of you may not have a good backup solution for group policy, which I hope you do, but you may not. So when something changes in group policy, you don't know what the previous version was. So we need a tool that is going to help us track the changes that occur, not only with users and groups, but also with group policy. And I need to know what the old value was, and I need to know what the new value is, so that if I need to revert back, I can revert that back. I need to know when it changed. I need to know which domain controller changed on. All these details are extremely important. Now, I'll be honest, this sounds a little aggressive. I mean, this sounds a bit much. Those of you that have been around Active Directory for a long time know that some system like this, for this level of change monitoring, is almost asking too much of anything. But I hope that by the end of this particular webinar, you can see that it's not only possible, we can actually expand beyond this and actually get information to us even in more real time. So we'll get to that in just a minute. So now that we know the definition, how do we set this up? Well, what we are going to do is we are going to go into auditing. Now this auditing has been around actually since Windows NT, so it's not, that radical. But we need to go into auditing, which of course is in group policy, and we need to establish what we are going to audit. So we need to go into group policy and set up the audit policy, and you see all the details there. But what we're going to do is we're going to jump into my live Active Directory environment. I'm going to come over here to my group policy management, and I'm going to come up here to my GPO, and I'm going to show you the settings that we need to establish for auditing. So I'm coming here under security, local policies, and here's my audit policy. Now, I want to talk about a couple of things here within the audit policy. First, you have 9 different areas that you can configure. Not all 9 areas are required to be configured to track Active Directory changes. Second, what I have configured here is more than you need to track only Active Directory changes. The reason I have more set up is once we get Active Directory change monitoring in place, well, what about file and folder change monitoring or access monitoring? What about server access and changes? So what I have established here is that I'm going to track a multitude of things that are changing on domain controllers, servers, and workstations, which go beyond just Active Directory, which is what we're focusing on for this webinar. Second, every single audit policy option can have success, failure, or success and failure. So you need to make decisions on what you want to track. Well, how do you make those decisions? Well, you could use trial and error, or what I'm going to recommend, I've given you my email address already, is we at ManageEngine, the AD Solutions team, have put together a document for you. The document goes over every single one of the audit policy areas, and we tell you if you need to establish that depending on what you want to track. Again, you have files, you have server configurations, you have other security settings, plus of course you have Active Directory. So depending on what you want to track, our document will tell you exactly what you need to establish within this audit policy. So if you email me, I'd be more than happy to send you the link to that particular document so you don't have to do trial and error. One more thing that I want to focus on in here is you'll notice that I have a GPO outside of the default domain policy that I'm using to configure the audit policy. This is our recommendation, and the reason for this recommendation, really from my standpoint, is I don't trust Microsoft. I don't trust Microsoft that someday they're going to release a patch or a service pack, and that inside of that patch or service pack, it sets the default GPOs back to the default. There's a command to do it, and it could easily be slid into a patch. So I want to make sure that all the settings that I have are away from what Microsoft can do, setting the defaults back to the default. So we use a GPO outside of the defaults to do that. Oh, one more thing that I want to point out here. You will notice that my GPO is linked to the domain. If you only want to track Active Directory changes, you can link this GPO to the domain controllers. But again, I'm looking at my file servers, I'm looking at my application servers, I'm looking at my workstations. So I need to have this GPO at the domain level so it affects all of my Windows computers, not just my domain controllers. All right, so now we have inside of our GPO, not the default domain GPO, inside of a GPO, I have my particular settings established. All right. I also have, using my document, I have the correct settings established so that I am only auditing what I want to audit. Now, why do I want to audit only what I want to audit? Someone tells me my mic keeps cutting out, and I don't know why. Let's see if I can rearrange some stuff here. Okay, I've said it's all good now. I'll try to stop moving around. My USB might be a little loose, but I'll try to stay still. Anyway, I apologize for that. Okay, so we need to make sure that we have the correct audit policy set up. Then we need to make sure that we have success and failure set up. Well, why would I ever need failure? Well, we need to look, or we could look beyond just changes in Active Directory. Let's say, for example, we want to look at logon failures. Now, why do we want to look at logon failures? Of course, we all know the answer to that. We want to know if someone is trying to attack us. So if we actually set up failure as well as successes, we can actually look at trends of when certain users are failing to log on. Let me give you two examples of why this is important. One is obviously the internal attack. Someone trying to guess passwords, and they're going to obviously have some failures for the logon. Two, we all know that users have a multitude of devices. And with the multitude of devices, they have logons into Active Directory through multiple devices. When it comes time to reset the password, they're going to go to one device, reset the password, but their other devices are still logged on with the wrong password. Therefore, they're going to get failed logons, and then they're actually going to get locked out. We need to look at situations like this, and these are failures, so we need to do that. Okay? Again, the document that I'm going to send you tells you all about the settings for success and failure. Now, once we get the success and failure set up, many administrators at this point decide to go into Active Directory, make a change, and determine if they're tracking Active Directory. And what you're going to find, many of you have done this, is you're not tracking a darn thing. You may have a couple of events in there, but not very many. The reason is, once you set up the auditing inside a group policy, you're only half done. There is what I consider to be a secret set of settings that is not well documented that you also have to go in and set up. Now, these settings are actually inside of Active Directory. What you need to do is you need to set up what's called the SACL, the Security Access Control List. The Security Access Control List is the auditing tab in the advanced security settings within Active Directory. Now, on your screen, you have a screenshot, but I want to show you how to get there. So I'm going to jump back into my Active Directory environment. I'm going to Active Directory Users and Computers. My domain node, right-click, Properties, Security, Advanced, Auditing. And notice I have a bunch of configurations in here. This is the secret. You have to tell the system what you want to track. It's just like files and folders. Everything that has an AC, an access control list, has to be told what needs to be tracked in order for it to be tracked. So now if we start tying things together, just 10 minutes ago I told you that I want to track computer changes, group changes, organizational unit, user, group policy changes. I have told the system that I need to go and track all of these changes. And I do it at the domain level. So now everything below the domain knows that it needs to be tracked. What settings are in there? Again, in the document that we have put together, now you can see the document's pretty large, we have all the details of exactly what you need to configure for both the audit policy as well as the SACL, the Security Access Control List, so you track all the changes that occur within Active Directory. Now, once you do both of these settings, you've established the audit policy and you've set up Security Access Control List, you're done. You will now start to track every single change that occurs within Active Directory. But wait, there's always a but wait, right? You could actually track more and get better information if you use a different type of auditing. Now, this different type of auditing is called advanced auditing. Advanced auditing was first introduced by Microsoft in Server 2008. It really didn't become a viable solution until Server 2008 R2, but if you have Server 2008 R2 domain controllers and greater, so 2012 R2, then advanced auditing is the way to go. What advanced auditing does is it gives you expanded information. It gives you more events and more information about the events than normal auditing. The reason Microsoft put this together is back in 2007, 2008, they were working with basically the auditing and security compliance community, and they were putting together a tool called Security Compliance Manager, SCM. Now, SCM is a free tool by Microsoft. If you haven't seen it, I would highly encourage you to go download it and look at it. And it's based on baselines. Now, there's a lot of information in SCM. Certainly, I could probably talk about SCM for an entire hour itself, but SCM includes this concept of advanced auditing. And inside of SCM, as well as group policy for Server 2008 R2 and greater, you have the ability to control this advanced auditing. Now, let me show you where advanced auditing is within group policy. I go back to my group policy object. I edit it. Let me show you where we were for the normal auditing. So here you can see the audit policy under our security settings. But if you go to the bottom of the security settings, all the way to the bottom of the list, you have advanced auditing. And advanced auditing gives you the ability to do a couple of things. As I mentioned first, you have the ability to get more events and better events than just using the normal auditing. But also, each and every area has the ability to have subcategories. And these subcategories allow you to not track things that you don't care about. What benefit is this? Well, everyone knows that once you set up auditing, it is going to take resources away from that machine. Well, if we can actually reduce what we're tracking, that's a benefit. So now we're not hitting the server nearly as hard as if using normal auditing. Also, at some point, which none of us like to do this, you're going to have to sift through the information to try to find what you want out of the log. If we have less information in the log, that means you have less information that you have to bypass to get to the information that you care about. So really, this advanced auditing gives us all the benefits, no negatives, so we want to use it whenever possible. So we want you to use advanced auditing when you have newer domain controllers and normal auditing for your older domain controllers. Can you have a combination of advanced auditing and normal auditing in the same domain if you have a mixture of domain controller versions? Absolutely. There's no problem with that whatsoever. It's just you're going to get a little bit deeper information from your newer operating systems than your older ones, but that's okay. Again, at the end, I'm going to show you our solution bypasses all of that, and we can consume anything and give you reports on exactly what you need. All right, enough of that for now. We'll come back to that. All right? So what settings do I make in advanced auditing? Remember this document that you're going to email me for? Well, guess what? We have advanced auditing in there too. So we have auditing, advanced auditing, and all the SACLs that you need to set up in this one document. So now that we have our audit policy and our SACL and potentially our advanced audit policy set up, we're done. Now we just wait. We wait for things to change in Active Directory. And once things change in Active Directory, we are going to go to the security log to see those changes. Now, inside of the security log, we're going to see that we potentially, I apologize for the mic, people. I don't know what's going on. I've never had this problem before. So let me see if I can do one thing to help with the microphone. All right, I apologize for that. Anyway, so I tied down my mic, so hopefully it won't be a problem. I apologize. All right, so back to this. All right, so now we have information going into our security log. We have some things to consider. First, the changes that occur in Active Directory will only appear in the security log on the DC where the change occurred. Meaning, if you have 10 domain controllers, you're going to have 10 unique security logs. All right? Each DC has its own unique security log because the security log is not replicated between domain controllers. Now, I have in my test environment here, my lab that I do demos on, I have one security log on this domain controller, and you will see in this security log I have 147,000 events. Wow, that's a lot of events. So as you can see, if you have 10 domain controllers, you're going to have 10 logs, and you're going to have approximately 1.5 million events at any one time. So when we start looking at the security log and trying to get information out, I think we've hit our first road bump, which is we have a lot of information that we have to sift through. We're going to have to go through a lot of information in order to get what we need out of these logs. But Microsoft has helped us. So let's walk through some questions and some answers to see what Microsoft has done to help us get through these logs. First of all, did you know that Microsoft updated the event viewer as well as the security log back in Vista and Server 2008? Well, what Microsoft did is they actually added some different features. First, they added this thing called a custom view. And what the custom view allows is for you to go in and basically parse through the huge log and only look at the events that you care about. Now, before we had the custom view, we had to search through the entire log. And what search options did we have? Well, in order to find something, let's come up with an example. As I tour around the world, I try to come up with an example that is the same for everyone. And I think the domain admins group is the same for everyone. It's there by default, so let's focus on that. Everyone wants to know the last time the domain admins group changed membership. This is critical for you as an admin, and it's critical for your organization's security. So let's try to use the Microsoft event viewer and security log to find our last time this changed. So I'm going to come in here with our filter, and I'm going to say I want to look in the security log, and I want to look for domain admins. Now, if you were to see me, I'm trying to type domain admins in this keyword, and it won't work. The reason is it's a drop-down, and domain admins is not an option. So there's no other way to input information here to try to find domain admins. So this really isn't the best solution. But notice another option that we have is find. And you can type in here domain admins, and we can find the last time domain admins changed membership. Now, as we sit here and wait for this to try to find domain admins in one of these events, I hope you can think, wow, if I have 10 DCs, I got to do this 10 times. And if it's going to take this long on one DC, it's going to take 10 times on 10 DCs. And I can't just look on one DC because I have to look at every DC because the change could have occurred on any of them. Are you getting my point here? So now we don't have a speed bump. Now we have a small wall because your time is valuable. And trying to use this as a solution isn't really a great solution. But Microsoft did add this idea of custom views, and I can come in here and look at group changes. Now, in this security log, I have no group changes. But let me show you how this works. If I were to come into, let's say, my help desk technicians, and I were to change by adding a member and then removing that same member to the group, that would then show up in my custom view. Okay, so one of these is an addition and one of these is a removal. So you see that this is real time. This is actually a pretty good feature, right? But what I want to point out is I'm working in a demo environment here. How often do your groups change membership? Of the 147,000 events here, how many of them do you think are group changes? I think there's going to be quite a few. So yes, it's an option, but it's still not going to get us down to the point of where we need to be because we have a multitude of domain controllers and we have a multitude of solutions. Okay, now let's move on to our next question. Sorry, I was reading one of the questions that came through. So we have this option, but if we didn't have any changes in the 147,000 events, that means that we've lost some events. Well, if we've lost some events, that means that there is a size limit to the security log. Well, how big can the security log get? Well, if we go back into the security log and we go to properties, we can see that there is an entry here for the size of the log. But it doesn't really tell us what the maximum is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rely on group policy. So I'm going to come in here to group policy where I can control the size of the log, and it says maximum security log size. You could input information here, but you still don't know what the maximum is, but we have an explain tab. And the explain tab tells us by Microsoft that there is a theoretical maximum of 4 gig. Now what that means to me as a translation is, yes, it can go to 4 gig, however, we wouldn't recommend it. But they do tell you the recommended maximum size. Practically, they tell you 300 meg. Now I want you to consider, sitting on your desk, in your pocket, on your keychain, you probably have a USB thumb drive. How big is that USB thumb drive? I'm going to guess it's at least 500 meg, if not a gig, right? So how big is 300 meg in today's storage capacity? It's tiny. What we're dealing with here is an issue that our log is being suggested to be small. And what happens when our log is small? When our log is small, that means that we are missing information. Because most of our organizations have the log set up. Let me go back to the security log. Most of them have it set up to overwrite events as needed. That means that we are overwriting events as they come through. Today is the 3rd of February, and my log goes back only to the 2nd. I only have a day of information here. So now the wall keeps getting bigger. Now, not only is it difficult to find the information in the log, it may not even be in the log. But wait, does Microsoft give us a way to back up the security log when it fills up? Now, some of you are saying no, some of you are saying yes, but let me show you. This is not a special version of Windows, okay? If I go to the security log, properties, there's an option to archive the log when it fills up. This feature was added in Windows Server 2008. This technology has been out there for 8 years. The way you can control this is actually through a group policy. If you come under your administrative templates, Windows components, event log service, security, you can specify the path to store the logs and specify to back up automatically when it's full. This technology's been here for a long time. Now let's think about the outcome of this. All right, I have 10 domain controllers, and I'm going to back up this log when it fills up. You see that in my little test environment, I have 1 day worth of information. This is not production. Well, let me give you an idea of what you might experience here. Last July, I was in Sydney, Australia, and there was a gentleman in my seminar, my live seminar, that had actually set this up and monitored how many logs were archived per domain controller. And in his environment, which may or may not be exactly yours, he had 10 logs per day per domain controller. So that means if he had 10 domain controllers, he had 100 files per day. And in those 100 files per day, he had approximately 15 million events that he had to go through. Well, first, he had to even get to the log. Well, how do you import and view an archived log? Well, you have to go to security, and you have to open the saved log. You would have to do this in 1 day 100 times to look at all of the logs. Do you see the wall is getting bigger here? We're now getting volume as our biggest competitor here. This is our biggest problem. It's volume. We have 15 million events per day that we have to sift through in order to track and get the information that we need. And then we have to import it every time manually. This is becoming more and more of a problem. So even though Microsoft, and I'm going to give them all the credit in the world, has done some awesome features inside of the event viewer, they're just not where we need to be. But wait a minute, what if we can consolidate the logs? Instead of looking at 10 DCs, what if we only had 1 log to look at? Is that possible? The answer is yes. Again, back in Server 2008, Microsoft developed a new technology called event log forwarding. And event log forwarding is configured using subscriptions. And inside of a subscription, you specify which computers, in our case it would be all the domain controllers, you want to get log information from, and then you specify which events that you want to get. And you're done. The end result now is in the forwarded events, you're going to have all of the group changes that occur across all of your domain controllers in 1 log. Can I get down and only look at domain admins? Absolutely, using this find option. How good did that work on a normal log? Not very good. How good is it going to work on this consolidated log? The exact same way. And you're going to have the same problems with the archive because this log has a size as well. So even though we have a technology to consolidate the log, we have a size limitation on the log, and that's going to cause us to have issues with the overall ability to find what we want in the log. But let's think differently. So far, everything that I've talked about is a manual check inside of the log. How many of you have time to sift through logs manually? You don't have time for that. You have other things that are more important. So what if, when the event that we are concerned about comes into the log, we get an email? Is that possible? And the answer is yes. Right here inside of Event Viewer, with any particular event, you can associate a task with that event, and one of the tasks can be send an email. Now we're getting somewhere. So instead of you having to go do the work yourself, the system does the work for you. But what's the negative? Well, when was the last time that Domain Admins Group changed membership in your environment? Was it yesterday? Was it last week? Was it last month? And how many groups changed membership in between that time that you really don't care about? That's right. This can only get down to the event ID level. That's it. I cannot just specify domain admins. So that means that I'm going to receive an email every time a group changes membership, even if it's for some group I don't care about. There is no way to differentiate because the Microsoft solution only gets down to the event ID level. So dang it, we're kind of stuck again. We thought we were there. I really thought we were there. But the technology just isn't refined enough to give us the solution that we need. So in the end, we have issues with the event viewer. The log's too small, the information that's there, even if we can get it there, is going to be hard to decrypt. I mean, how many of you follow this process? An event comes in, you find the event, you have no idea what the description means, so you take part of the description, you go out to the internet, and you try to find something on the internet that describes exactly what that event means. We do it all the time. We're going to have to do that because all we're dealing with is the raw security in events. If we don't use consolidation, well, each DC has its own log. Alerting isn't detailed enough. And do we even want to mention reporting? Can someone point to me inside of Event Viewer where we can generate reports? Is there an option here for generate reports? No. There's no option for reporting in Event Viewer. So even if we want it, remember our definition was we need to get reports out of this for ourselves and for compliance and auditing. It's not available. But we have a list of things that we need to track. Every admin around the world has the same list of events. Now, you may have some other events that you want to track, different from others, but I found this is a pretty basic list. Every admin wants to know when a new user is created. I need to know. I need to know when the password policy changes. This is a very important configuration for my organization. I need to know. I need to know when the domain admins group changes membership. In reality, I need to know when any group that has privileges changes membership. I need to know that. This is the core of security. I was just talking 30 minutes ago with someone writing an article up in Canada, and he was talking about this idea of privileges in the groups. And I said, absolutely, access is one of the most important things. We must know as administrators when privileged group change membership. And then we can get into more detail. I want to know when any service account is modified in any way, because the outcome of a modified service account normally is a bad thing. The service stops, someone doesn't have access, the password changed, the account's disabled, who knows what it is. And everyone on this webinar knows monitoring service accounts would be a huge benefit in any Active Directory environment. So how do we do this? Well, I think it's obvious at this point. Trying to use Event Viewer is not going to be the solution for this. So what's the solution? I feel it's AD Audit Plus. Let me show you how simple this is. The simplicity of this is a little staggering, okay? Let's take our very first concept. I need to know when the last time that the domain admins group changed membership, okay? Let me show you how few clicks this is. Go to reports. You go to the built-in report for modified admin groups. In the last 30 days, domain admins has not changed membership. So I go back in time. Let's look at the last 6 months. When did domain admins change? Domain admins changed on December the 7th. Now today is January the 3rd. This is almost 60 days ago. How many of you want to look through 60 days worth of logs trying to find this one entry? I don't think you could accomplish it very quickly. I think it would take you another 60 days to figure out how to do it. This is a tool that gives you reports on changes that have occurred in Active Directory over time. And any report that I show you has the ability to be exported to comma delimited, PDF, whatever format that you need, depending on who you need to give it to. So even looking at a basic example, you see the power of the tool. But I want to expand on the power of the tool, right? So I said that I want to know when any privileged group changes membership. You will notice that in my listing, I also have finance managers. Wait a minute, finance managers? You probably don't have a finance managers in your Active Directory. How come I have finance managers configured as a privileged group in mine? Well, because it is a privileged group in my Active Directory. You have privileged groups that I don't have, and I have privileged groups that you don't have. So it's impossible for this tool, AD Audit Plus, to know what you mean by admin group. But we give you the ability to define it in a couple of clicks. In order for you to customize any report that we give you, and there's 125 reports by default, you simply go to configuration, go to the object type that you're looking for the report, which is a group in this case. You go to the default group that's there and you edit it, and you simply add in, by hitting this filter, the groups that you want. It can't be simpler. As soon as you put in a new group in this list and that group changes membership, that group now shows up on this report. It is extremely powerful for you to be able to get reports on things that change in Active Directory. And this is how simple it is, okay? Now, what about more complex concepts? Well, let's go over one. Service accounts. In the United States of America, service accounts for most Active Directory admins are a nightmare. And they're a nightmare for two reasons. One, you have auditors, and auditors look at user reports, and those user reports indicate that the service account passwords haven't changed in years. They knock on your door and say, hey, why haven't these users had their password changed in years? We are not meeting compliancy regulations. Sound familiar? Yes. Two, even if you wanted to change the password for the service accounts, you really don't know every place that it's configured. So you're afraid to change the password, because if you change the password, something may break. Make sense? Let me show you a solution. When I first came to Manage Engine, I sat down with the AD Solutions team, and they're like, yeah, we know this is a big problem. What do we do? So we worked together to help you, the admin, solve this problem. And inside of our free Active Directory tool set, which you just hit our website and you download them for free, we have a service account management tool. Now, inside this tool, you go to service accounts, You specify all the machines for which you want to gather service accounts, and then you go get the service accounts. No agents required. You put in the credentials that has access to all those machines, and this tool goes out and grabs all those service accounts for you. Now, you're going to find that there's a bunch of built-in accounts which you don't care about. That's why we give you the filter. Pretty awesome, huh? Tells you exactly which machine and which account is being used. If you want the associated services, you can do that too. Once you have the list, I recommend that you export it for documentation. Then you take the list and you go back to Audit Plus, and you are going to create a new report. It's a user report for service accounts. So new report profile, which I've already done for you for service accounts. And you tell the system if anything changes around this service account, and this is the list of accounts, I want it in a report. This is what that report looks like. Service account modifications, there's my list. Every time a service account is modified, it shows up in this report. But I told you earlier that monitoring only gets you so far. Monitoring is excellent for documentation, it's excellent for auditors. You as the admin need to know right now that that changed. Watch this. If anyone goes into my service account and modifies a service account in any way, immediately I have an alert show up. Now, I want you to digest that just for a second. You can set up alerts for any change that occurs in Active Directory. And the alert will show up in your dashboard, as well as every single alert that you define, you can also send out an email. Tell me that's not powerful. I am telling you firsthand, as a longtime Active Directory MVP, this tool changes how you deal with your environment. Because of the simplicity of the tool and the power of the tool, you now can see things that you never could see before. And the only way that you knew changes that were occurring was someone called you and said something was broken, and then you had to spend an hour to 8 hours trying to find what the change was. Stop. You don't have to worry about that anymore. We have 125 default reports telling you of all the changes that are occurring in Active Directory when they occur in real time. This tool gives you the solution that we were looking for at first, plus real-time alerting telling you when those changes occur. So Audit Plus has 125 default reports. You can customize any of the default reports plus create your own custom reports with a couple of clicks. You can also establish an alert for any report. This is the tool that you need. So what did we solve here? Well, we looked at a definition that was really aggressive, and we set up auditing and the SACL to solve that, to track those changes. But we found that the security log didn't have the needed reporting and searching tools. So what we did is we put on top of it Audit Plus. And on top, Audit Plus allows you to see things in real time that you never could see before. So now we have a solution that is going to get you what you need out of Active Directory when it occurs. Now, a couple of things as we kind of wrap up here, because we're getting to the end of our hour. We've had some great questions come through, and those questions have been answered by other AD Solutions members as we go through. So please, if you want to look at the questions that were asked, you can go to the questions, you can see any question and the answer that was asked. You also are going to receive a survey. And I really ask, I mean, I travel the world doing presentations, I give webinars every week, but it's important for me to know that we are getting you the information that you need. So first and foremost, give us feedback on whether or not the information we provided today was worthwhile to you, and if there's anything else that we can do for you, whether it be in a blog, whether it be in a webinar, whether it be in a video, please give us some direction of what else information you need, and we'd be more than happy to put that together. So the survey really is for you to express some different needs that you have, and we really want to get that feedback from you. Finally, as kind of a, let's call it a parting gift, if you go to our main page, the manageengine.com website, and you go to any of our areas here, let's say you want to get the 80 Audit Plus, you click on that and you can download the product and get a free 30-day license. That 30-day license is a fully 100% functional license. I want you to see how quick you can install and configure this tool and get things running. Usually it's less than 15 minutes. Now, 15 minutes of your time so you can get these reports and alerts, it's invaluable. This tool is so powerful for your Active Directory environment, it is going to change the way that you deal with Active Directory. I'm telling you, when I found this tool, I was jumping for joy. This is such a powerful tool. It really is something that you need to take a look at. Now, I just jumped over the questions, and I always get the question, does this need to be installed on a domain controller? The answer is no. Our best practice is for you to pick a physical or a virtual machine that's currently in place, or even spin up a new one, and it's going to need space to store the database, but it's all web-based. I mean, I can connect to this interface just by going to a port. So I can be anywhere as long as I can connect to that machine and see the information. Again, that's some of the power and the ease that we have developed inside of our solutions. So, and wrap up, what have we done? What do I want to kind of pinpoint here? First, you have my email. Please email me with questions. Email me for the document. I'd be more than happy to send it to you. I pointed you to the security hardening website. There is awesome information on that site. I guarantee you, you will not find another site with that much information in one place ever. And it's all organized there for you to consume. Please go take a look at it. It's really our gift to you. Go download the product, take a look at it. If you want to have more of a customized demo for the product, please give us an email and we'd be happy to set that up for you. But I want you to go see how easy this thing is to set up before you start asking questions, because once you get it in place, you're going to see the tool is extremely powerful. Okay? Someone's asking me for my email address, so I will give you that. Let's come back over here. I will use the most powerful tool known to man, Notepad. That's my email address. If you also want to contact someone else, contact Harry. Both of us would be more than happy to help you. It's our quest to help you as much as possible. So with that, I think I've given you enough to think about, I've given you enough to do, and hopefully I've given you some deeper insight into Active Directory, how things are set up, how things work, and I've given you solutions around change monitoring of Active Directory. So with that, I'm going to let you guys get back to work, go to lunch, whatever you need to do depending on where you are, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Please keep a lookout for our events as they come around to your area. If you are at RSA, please come up, introduce yourself to me. I would love to meet you, and I hope to see you live somewhere, or hope to see you on our next webinar. This is Derek Melber for the rest of the AD Solutions team here at Manage Engine. Thank you for your time, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks.